Hey everyone, it's Bob Perkins bringing you another Monday Morning Sales Minute. Hope you enjoyed the summer school series and we're back into the fall swing of things. With us today, I have Carole Mahoney. Carole, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm sad that it's the end of summer, but I'm looking forward to fall.
You are an officer at the Boston chapter. Your company that you have is Unbound Growth. You do consulting, coaching, training, both reps and leaders. Some pretty impressive things I learned about you. Number one, both Ambition and Sales Hacker listed you as a top sales coach to watch. And also during your spare time, I know that you train Harvard MBA students on selling, which I think is great.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, look, today's topic is near and dear to my heart. It has to do with really shutting up as a sales rep, holding off your pitch, doing good discovery. And we don't do that well. So you're going to help guide us through some ideas around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I see. It's almost like you're as sure to catch a cold in the fall as you are to have a salesperson who talks too much and doesn't ask enough questions in discovery, right? And as sales managers, it's so frustrating because, every month you're going through that stress of what's going to close and what's going to close next. And a lot of times what I see happen is this vicious roller coaster cycle where the end of the month happens. Sales managers are like, okay, here's the numbers that we need to hit. We're going to crush it this month. Everybody's all psyched up. They've licked their wounds from last month. And then they continue the same cycle where it's every week, what's happening with this deal and what's happening with that deal. And I think what's missing a lot of times for sales managers is that to break that cycle is to focus on the opportunities that are coming in early stage. What are the discovery questions they're asking? What are they learning about the buyer and their problem and why it's important for them to solve, and the obstacles that they've reached and faced in trying to solve it, what's worked, what hasn't worked. All of these are things that sales managers need to be asking their salespeople to role play and demanding, almost like, what is your plan for addressing these questions, listening to their calls. It's the only thing that's going to predict whether or not they're going to actually close these deals, because the moment that salesperson opens their mouth and says hello, the close is started or not started.
It's so true. Sometimes they focus on the early part, which is the activity metrics, and activity is good. But then they go right to the end. Hey, when is this deal coming in? They've left out one of the most important parts. You mentioned it, the quality, the skills, the questioning. How would you recommend, and we'll sort of end with a tip for leaders, if they want to get better at coaching and inspecting that middle piece of the sales cycle, how do they do that? Is it a one-on-one? Is it coaching? Is it a QBR?
So it's going to be a combination of things, but it has to start with consistent one-on-one coaching. So if you're not spending 15 minutes a week, at least 15 to 20 minutes a week coaching your salespeople in a one-to-one on specific things. So for example, I'm going to call this person today and here's what it's going to sound like, and actually role play it out loud. And like I did with a coaching client this morning, this is how they would normally do it, where it's a 30-second pitch and your buyer at the other end is wondering when they're going to get to their point. I said, okay, you can do half of your calls this way, but then I want you to do the other half this way. And let's run an experiment. Let's see which one of these actually works better, because sometimes with your reps, to get them to make changes, you have to make them small. And you have to reduce the risk of, we're going to change everything, throw it all out, and you're going to start all over again.
Yeah.
So role play some questions with them and find out, how did they find you? Or if you're cold calling them, are you struggling with X, Y, and Z type of a thing? And make it personal. What can you find out? If you can get half the amount of activity metrics and get a higher conversion rate and quality, you're way ahead of the game. And your sales reps are less stressed out.
I love where you're going. In fact, we had a webinar on personalization. So you believe in getting personal early in the call, so you kind of get their attention and then find out their need. Ask them questions. I call it leave your product or service in the bag until they really have a need and they express a need for that. So these are great tips. Managers, if you're listening out there, please, take Carole's advice. We got to try to change where our profession is today. We're still talking too much. We're pitching too much. Let's become consultative. Let's be eager to learn. And let's, use the right questions and the personalization to get the credibility on the call, to get them talking.
Yeah. It has to
Carole,
be all about the buyer.
any final tips before we close out?
My final tip would be this, and this is why I wear this ridiculous t-shirt everywhere I go, is to remember that to drill into your salespeople, and for sales managers remembers as well, it's not about you or your product or your service or your features or your benefits. It's all about the buyer. And so if you can have the litmus test, I call it the we factor. Listen to your calls. How many times do you say I, we, our, solution? And it's all about the wording and you versus a question that's about them and their and your problem.
I love it. That's a really good practical tip. Leaders, if you're out there, listen to calls. How much are we using we, our, ours versus you and theirs and them? Fantastic. Carole, if someone wants to reach out to you, best way to contact you?
You can reach me through my website at unboundgrowth.com. Of course, if you Google me and you can't find me, then I'm not doing my job right. But I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm pretty easily stalked.
Carole, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time today. And thanks again for your work with the Boston chapter.
Good. Great to see you again, Bob.
Good seeing you. Bye-bye.